A copper-gold dawn spilled across the royal parade ground, sharpening the obsidian spires of the capital into black spears. Lieutenant Evan Cross, freshly posted to the Terran delegation, tightened the strap of his ceremonial sash and forced his shoulders square. He had drilled for weeks in the precise, spare movements meant to impress the Valorians, gestures respectful but never servile. Yet as the high clarions of the welcoming fanfare split the air, he knew he was stepping into a game older and more dangerous than any Earth briefing could prepare him for. From the grand stair of the citadel descended Princess Celine Vera, heir to the eternal throne, violet eyes catching the light like facets of amethyst. A stray silver strand slipped from her coronet, and for an instant she seemed less like an untouchable royal and more like a young woman measuring the stranger in the Terran ranks. The air between them shivered with a faint vibration, a harmonic Evan could not name, before the ceremony swept the moment away. Valorian protocol demanded an elaborate progression of blessings and oaths. Incense curled in pale blue ribbons, crystal chimes hung from the arcades, ringing in mathematical counterpoint to the low drone of the temple choir. Ambassador Hartwell, Earth's senior envoy, leaned toward Evan and whispered without moving his lips, "Remember, observe, don't improvise." Evan gave the barest nod, every soldier's instinct still coiled and alert. The tension in the air was not merely ceremonial. Rumors whispered of factions inside the Valorian High Council opposed to any treaty with Earth. Some feared humans as a contagion, restless, unbound. Others feared something stranger, that human unpredictability might awaken powers their own ancestors had once sealed away. Celine reached the amphitheater center, her voice carrying with the natural resonance of one born to rule. "On this day we open our hearts to a future not yet written," she declared in the ancient tongue, then shifted seamlessly into the neutral trade speech. "Let the bonds of respect be forged, and may the wisdom of our ancestors guide us through the uncertainties ahead." The crowd answered with a single rising chord that made the marble floor tremble. Evan felt it in the soles of his boots and in the scar along his left shoulder, a wound from a forgotten frontier skirmish. The familiar prickle of danger followed, and he welcomed it. When the rites ended, the delegation was ushered toward the inner gardens for the exchange of gifts. The Terrans bore only one offering, a star-forged crystal etched with Earth's earliest constellations. Celine accepted it with a nod that carried both gratitude and something unspoken, her eyes lingering on Evan a fraction too long. He wondered if she, too, had sensed the strange vibration on the parade ground. Then a flicker of movement at the colonnade shattered the quiet, too swift for ceremonial guards to track. Evan's breath shortened. His soldier's mind recognized the trajectory before conscious thought caught up. An assassin's blade, honed to a molecule, arcing toward the princess's heart. He moved without calculation. Years of combat drills fused with the raw instinct of a protector. He vaulted the ceremonial rail and placed himself squarely between the weapon and Celine. The blade met his body with a hiss like frozen lightning. Pain tore through him, white and blinding, but he did not fall. The amphitheater erupted in chaos. Guards shouted, weapons hummed to lethal readiness. The assassin dissolved into the confusion like smoke. Evan staggered, forcing himself upright as Celine caught his arm with surprising strength. Where her hand met his skin, a shock of blue-white light flared outward, coiling around them in an ancient pattern. Gasps rippled through the Valorian onlookers. The crystal chimes shattered in sympathetic resonance. Celine's eyes widened, not in fear but in recognition. "The Orith bond," she whispered, barely audible beneath the uproar. A pulse, neither heartbeat nor breath, thrummed through Evan's entire being. Memories not his own seared across his vision. Moonlit citadels, star-spanning fleets, the whispered prayers of ancient queens. He saw through Celine's eyes the weight of centuries and the loneliness of command. And beneath it all, a vow older than any treaty, protector and heir, joined beyond species and beyond death. The pain in his chest faded to a distant echo. He and Celine stood at the center of a widening circle of stunned nobles and furious guards, the living nexus of something none of them fully understood. The bond's light pulsed once more, a silent declaration that no blade, no ancient prejudice, and no empire's law would ever undo what had just begun. The palace gardens became a whirlwind of disciplined chaos as guards converged on the perimeter, weapons drawn and shields raised. Evan steadied himself, feeling the lingering thrumming of the Orith bond through every fiber of his being. Celine's grip on his arm was firm but steady, as if she, too, were testing the limits of this unprecedented connection. "Evan," she whispered through the bond, her voice echoing in his mind rather than across the marble walkways. "Focus. You're hurt, but we need control now." He nodded, drawing a deep, shuddering breath. Pain lanced along his ribs where the assassin's blade had nicked him, but the blue-white pulse of the bond offered a strange comfort, weaving clarity into the chaos. He could feel her thoughts like a current running through his veins. The council will react. Prepare for manipulation. Watch the advisors. Ambassador Hartwell arrived, his eyes wide behind the ceremonial mask. "Lieutenant Cross, step aside," he hissed, though the urgency in his tone was tempered with awe. "Do you understand what just happened?" Evan allowed himself only a brief glance at the ambassador. "I understand enough," he replied, keeping his focus on Celine. "We need to move, now." Celine turned to the nearest royal guard, her violet eyes sharper than any blade. "Clear the inner gardens," she commanded. "No one enters until we have assessed the threat." Even in her composed tone, Evan sensed the surge of authority radiating from her, amplified by the bond that linked their awareness. They moved swiftly toward the palace's inner chamber, shadows stretching long under the early sun. The bond hummed continuously, a tether of consciousness that allowed them to anticipate one another's movements. When a pair of palace stewards accidentally stepped too close, Evan subtly shifted, and Celine instinctively tilted, their movements nearly synchronous. Once inside the private corridor that led to the council chambers, Celine's voice took on a measured clarity. The assassination attempt was not random. Someone here orchestrated it. And I suspect they will attempt to manipulate the council's perception of this bond. Evan nodded. Then we treat everything from this moment as strategic. Every glance, every word, every gesture will be observed and interpreted. We can't let them twist this, whatever this bond is, against you. Celine's brow furrowed slightly. They will question our loyalty, perhaps even our judgment. Some will see this bond as an abomination, proof that I am unfit to rule. Then we prove them wrong, he said. Together he added mentally, letting the bond convey the thought in its truest, unspoken form. They reached the council chamber, its towering doors of polished obsidian reflecting their determined silhouettes. Inside, the air was thick with the musk of incense and authority. Advisors and noble elders filled the room, their eyes flicking between the princess and the Terran officer, suspicion shadowing every movement. "Princess Celine," began High Counselor Luxon, his tone smooth yet razor-edged. "Your presence here, and the circumstances of your recent bond with Lieutenant Cross, demand clarification." It is imperative for the stability of our governance that such anomalies be examined without delay. Celine met his gaze evenly, her violet eyes unwavering. "You will hear the truth," she said. Then, through the bond, Evan felt her resolve infuse him, steadying his pulse. "We are aligned, no matter what they say." Luxon's hand gestured toward Evan. "Explain, human. How does it come to pass that you share this Dareth bond with the heir to the throne?" Evan inhaled slowly, feeling every word resonate through the bond. "It was not sought, nor was it accidental. I acted to protect the princess during an attempt on her life." The bond activated at that moment, linking us beyond conscious choice. Murmurs swept through the council chamber, some startled, others incredulous. Several of the elder nobles made subtle warding gestures, as if the concept itself threatened their equilibrium. Celine continued, her voice rising above the ripple of unease. "This bond does not diminish our individual identities. It strengthens our connection, enhances our awareness, and most importantly, ensures our mutual protection in ways that tradition alone cannot provide." Luxon's lips thinned. "This is unprecedented. The laws are clear. The Darth bond has only been observed among Valorian nobility. To cross such boundaries, human and Valorian, is an abomination." Celine's expression hardened. The laws were written to preserve tradition, not to dictate destiny. What has occurred proves only that life and loyalty cannot be confined to arbitrary divisions. Evan sensed the tension tighten like a drawn bow across the chamber. Through the bond, Celine's thoughts were steady, resolute. "Stand firm. Convey truth. Do not falter." He spoke next, plain and measured. "I have shared memories, instincts, and abilities with the princess. We have protected each other. The bond has been a shield and a guide. If fear or prejudice blinds you to its purpose, then the consequences are yours to bear, not ours." A heavy silence settled over the chamber. Advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Some dared not meet their princess's unwavering gaze. Even Luxon hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing against his rigid adherence to tradition. Celine stepped closer to Evan, their joined presence a subtle yet undeniable declaration. Through the bond, they communicated a single unspoken message to every observer. "We are united. Not by command, not by politics, but by choice, courage, and necessity." The council would not yield easily. But for the first time in the palace corridors of power, the notion of the Darth bond transcending its historical confines was no longer theoretical. It was visible, palpable, and unassailable. And in that charged silence, Evan knew one truth above all. The fight for acceptance, for understanding, and for the survival of both human and Valorian trust had only just begun. The council chamber remained thick with tension, the faint hum of the Darth bond vibrating subtly beneath the surface of the princess and Evan. Every eye followed their movements, trying to interpret the invisible connection that defied centuries of tradition. High Counselor Luxon cleared his throat, attempting to regain authority over the room. "Princess Celine, while I respect your courage, the formation of such a bond outside the laws of our ancestors cannot be ignored. Its very existence calls into question the integrity of your lineage and your judgment." Celine's gaze didn't waver. "Integrity isn't measured by adherence to fear or prejudice," she replied. Her voice carried a firmness that resonated through Evan via the bond. "We are aligned, no matter the doubts." One of the elder counselors, a wizened man named Therion, muttered, "Impossible. Our ancestors ensured that no outsider could form such a connection. How can a human be trusted with something sacred? Evan felt Celine's calm confidence flow through him. Answer them with truth, not defiance, she communicated. He straightened, taking a measured breath. The bond formed because of necessity, not intention. It activated during an act of protection, a moment when life hung in the balance. Its existence proves capability and loyalty, not corruption or weakness. Whispers spread across the chamber. Some advisors made subtle gestures of warding against what they believed to be contamination. Others looked on in growing curiosity, reluctant admiration flickering in their eyes. Luxon's expression darkened. Even if that is so, it is not the only concern. The bond has granted you access to Valorian memory and abilities. Does this not compromise the secrecy and sanctity of our traditions? Celine turned slightly, letting Evan feel the ripple of her thoughts, the quiet confidence that steadied them both. We have done nothing to compromise. We have only strengthened what is sacred. I have not taken knowledge to betray or subvert our people, Evan said aloud, his voice steady despite the scrutiny. I have shared memories, yes, but only to protect the princess and fulfill the responsibilities of the bond. Nothing has been taken for selfish gain. Luxon's hand twitched, betraying his agitation. And yet, the fear persists. You are a human, an outsider. To cross species boundaries in this sacred manner challenges not just tradition, but the very foundation of our hierarchy. Celine lifted her chin. Perhaps the foundation is stronger than we believed. Perhaps it is time we recognize that strength lies not in rigid separation, but in unity where it matters. The bond does not erase differences, it illuminates potential. The chamber was silent again, the words settling like a weight upon every noble present. Evan felt the subtle pressure of the bond, the delicate thread of trust that now linked him to Celine's resolve. We must hold firm, together. A younger council member, one who had remained quiet until now, spoke with cautious curiosity. Princess. Lieutenant, if what you say is true, what does this mean for the governance of Varelia? Can a human truly serve at such proximity to the throne? Evan exchanged a brief glance with Celine, sensing her reply before she spoke. Answer wisely. I serve not as a replacement for tradition, but as a guardian of it, Evan said. The bond chooses its protectors carefully, honoring the values of this world. My purpose is to ensure those values endure, even as the methods may evolve. Celine stepped forward slightly, her hand brushing against his subtly, reinforcing their unspoken unity. And I, as heir, accept this connection. It does not diminish my authority, nor does it lessen my duty. If anything, it strengthens our capacity to uphold our people and traditions against threats internal and external. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some of the older nobles frowned, their skepticism evident. Others, particularly younger members, began to exchange thoughtful glances, a hint of recognition that change, though uncomfortable, might be necessary. Luxon's jaw tightened. You speak of unity and protection, yet you flaunt the laws that govern us. This is audacious at best, treasonous at worst. Celine's voice rang clear, unwavering. It is not treason to protect life and uphold duty. The laws exist to guide us, not to blind us. If a bond formed in defense of the crown is considered treason, then perhaps the laws require reconsideration. The elder counselor Therion leaned forward, studying both Celine and Evan. If what you say is true, it would mark a turning point in our history. The implications are immense. Through the bond, Evan felt the faint hum of anticipation. They are listening. Slowly, they are hearing us. Celine allowed a small, determined smile to grace her features. History is written not by fear, but by courage. The Darth Bond has chosen. We serve, and we protect, and we honor the traditions of this world, whether that protection comes in ways expected or unprecedented. Luxon's face darkened further, but he said no more, aware that the room had shifted subtly. Allies and skeptics alike were watching the same proof unfold before them. Two individuals, connected across species and circumstance, standing as living testament to both courage and possibility. Evan let himself feel the pulse of the bond, the quiet reassurance that came from shared purpose. Together, we are stronger than any fear or doubt. The chamber remained charged with energy, the debate far from over, yet the tide had shifted subtly. Even in the midst of resistance, the first stirrings of acceptance began to ripple across the assembly, seeded by proof, loyalty, and undeniable courage. And in that silent, potent moment, Evan realized that the battle for tradition and understanding had truly begun, and that he and Celine would face it, unflinchingly, as one. The tension in the royal courtyard was nearly tangible as Princess Celine and Evan were escorted from the council chamber. Guards lined the perimeter, their presence a subtle reminder of the volatile mixture of politics and fear surrounding the Darth Bond. Whispers followed them wherever they went, speculation running rampant among nobles and attendants alike. Celine moved with a steady grace, but Evan could feel the weight of curiosity and suspicion pressing against them both. "Stay calm. They test our resolve," she communicated through the bond. He nodded, sensing the thread of her confidence strengthening him. Luxon and several of his allies lingered near the outer gates, their eyes narrow, their fingers brushing imperceptibly against ceremonial weapons. "This is far from over," Luxon murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "The moment they believe they can normalize this bond, I will strike." Meanwhile, the bond pulsed gently between Celine and Evan, a quiet assurance that they were connected in thought, instinct, and purpose. In that bond, Evan sensed not just Celine's calm, but the clarity of her strategic mind. "We must anticipate every move. Their fear is our advantage if we act with discipline." As they entered the private gardens adjacent to the palace, the silver light of Aurelia's twin moons cast long shadows across crystalline flora. Here, away from prying eyes, Celine allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. "For a moment, I thought the council would never hear reason," she admitted. Evan glanced at her. "They heard you. Even if they won't admit it yet, they understand the bond exists. That alone changes everything." Celine nodded thoughtfully, letting the bond's energy flow over her. "They will test us, but they cannot unmake what has already formed." Suddenly, a messenger arrived, panting and clearly out of breath. "Princess, Lieutenant." Reports from the northern borders indicate unusual activity, ships appearing without identification, moving toward our colonies. Sensors show advanced cloaking technology. It could be the first sign of an incursion. Celine's violet eyes narrowed. "We face threats on multiple fronts now," she communicated to Evan. His heartbeat quickened slightly, but the bond carried calm resolve. "We must respond immediately," Celine said aloud, turning toward the palace. "This is why the bond matters. We can coordinate, anticipate threats, and act before chaos spreads." Evan followed, sensing the subtle shift in strategy through the bond. And we will face it as one, he added mentally. Inside the War Council chamber, maps of Varelia's territories were projected across the floor, glowing with luminescent detail. Military advisors, analysts, and several skeptical nobles crowded around, their expressions tense. Celine approached the command center, with Evan close at her side. "Report everything," she ordered. "I want the full scope of what's happening." A tactical officer stepped forward. "Princess, preliminary scans suggest advanced drones probing our defenses. There's a pattern, but it doesn't match known tactics from neighboring systems. It's unprecedented." Celine's mind raced, but the bond allowed Evan to share instinctive insights. They probe like predators, testing for weakness. If we can predict the sequence, we can counter it. She nodded, integrating his input seamlessly. "Deploy defensive grids along the northern approaches," she commanded. "Prepare interception units with stealth countermeasures. We cannot allow them to reach civilian colonies." Evan interjected, speaking with the authority the bond granted him. "And I recommend integrating predictive algorithms based on previous attack vectors. We can anticipate movements before they fully manifest." Some of the older generals exchanged skeptical glances, but the younger officers were quick to adapt. "The bond gives them a synergy we haven't seen before," one muttered under his breath. As preparations commenced, Luxon's voice echoed through the palace corridors, dark and simmering with resentment. "They will rely too heavily on this bond. It cannot replace strategy, discipline, or loyalty. Mark my words, it will fail." Celine and Evan didn't respond aloud, but through the bond, they shared a subtle acknowledgement. "Let him doubt. It only sharpens our focus." Hours later, the northern skies of Varelia flared with activity. Cloaked vessels emerged from hidden jumps, probing defenses just as predicted. However, thanks to the coordinated guidance from the bond, interception units moved flawlessly, disabling the drones without loss of life or resources. Celine felt a surge of satisfaction, mirrored in Evan's steady pulse. "The bond works. We've proven it in action." Even as they celebrated this small victory, Celine remained vigilant. "This was only the first wave," she said. "There will be others. We must continue to strengthen not just our defenses, but our people's understanding of what this bond can achieve." Evan nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility now shared fully between them. "We've changed the game. But the challenges will only grow." As the night deepened and the skies returned to calm, the twin moons' silver glow bathed the palace in serene light. Celine and Evan walked side by side through the gardens, a quiet moment of reflection. "I've seen your courage in the council, your resolve in battle," Evan said. "And now, this. The bond has shown me a side of Varelia I didn't understand before." Celine smiled faintly, reaching out to brush a hand against his. "And you've shown me that strength isn't defined by heritage alone. Together, we are something new." The bond pulsed softly, a living reminder that two worlds, different, separate, yet now intertwined, could achieve harmony and purpose. Whatever trials awaited, they would face them not just as princess and protector, but as partners bound in mind, spirit, and destiny. The night settled around them, yet beneath the calm, both knew the dawn would bring new challenges: political intrigue, military threats, and the scrutiny of every noble on Varelia. But for the first time, they also knew they were ready. "Together, we are unstoppable," the bond whispered, and they walked forward with quiet certainty. The palace corridors were quieter than usual, yet the tension remained palpable. Whispers followed Celine and Evan wherever they went, the presence of the bond between them a topic of hushed speculation among servants and attendants alike. Every glance seemed loaded with curiosity, suspicion, or envy. Evan felt the subtle pull of the bond, Celine's calm guiding him even as the murmurs pressed in. Focus. We cannot allow distraction to weaken us now, she communicated. He nodded internally, drawing strength from their connection. They reached the private strategy chambers, where holographic maps of Varelia's northern territories were already projected. Advisors, military officers, and a few skeptical nobles gathered, awaiting instructions. Celine took her place at the center of the projections. Report, she commanded. Every anomaly, every movement. I want full clarity before making any decisions. A tactical officer stepped forward, voice steady despite the evident unease. Princess, the northern borders are experiencing irregular activity. Unidentified vessels are appearing, cloaked and moving in ways our sensors have never recorded. Preliminary analysis suggests advanced cloaking tech that mimics natural phenomena. Celine's violet eyes narrowed. The bond pulsed, transmitting Evan's instinctive insights. They are testing us. Each probe reveals a pattern. Anticipate the sequence, and we can neutralize their advantage. She adjusted the tactical interface, integrating Evan's suggestions seamlessly. Deploy defensive grids along the northern perimeter immediately. Prepare rapid response units with stealth countermeasures. No vessel may reach civilian colonies undetected. Evan stepped forward. Predictive algorithms based on historical incursion patterns can enhance response time. We can act preemptively rather than reactively. Some older generals frowned, skeptical of relying on two individuals, albeit bonded, over traditional protocols. But younger officers quickly adapted, recognizing the synergy between the princess and her protector. Meanwhile, Luxon's presence lingered like a shadow in the palace, his anger simmering. They will fail, he muttered to himself. This bond cannot replace strategy or loyalty. Sooner or later, it will betray them. Celine didn't respond aloud. Through the bond, she shared a subtle acknowledgement with Evan. Doubt sharpens us. Let him think that. Hours later, the northern skies flared with activity. Cloaked vessels emerged, moving in patterns they had anticipated. Thanks to the coordination and predictive guidance of the bond, interception units acted flawlessly, disabling the drones without loss of life or property. Celine allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, feeling Evan's mirrored sense of accomplishment through the bond. It works. We've proved its power in action. Yet she remained vigilant. This was only the first wave, she said, eyes scanning the projections for lingering threats. There will be more. We must strengthen not just our defenses, but the understanding of what this bond can achieve among our people. Evan's hand brushed hers briefly, a simple gesture that carried volumes through the bond. We've changed the game, he thought. The challenges ahead will be greater, but we are ready. Later, in the palace gardens, the twin moon's soft light shimmered across crystalline flora, casting gentle reflections along the paths. Celine and Evan walked side by side, the bond between them vibrating with quiet strength. I've seen your courage in the council, your resolve in battle, Evan said softly. And now, this. The bond shows me Varelia in a way I never understood. Celine smiled faintly, her hand brushing against his. And you've shown me that strength is not defined by heritage alone. Together, we are something new. The bond pulsed, a living testament to two worlds converging, two destinies intertwined. Whatever trials awaited them, political intrigue, military threats, or skeptical nobles, they would face them united. Together, we are unstoppable, the bond whispered. And they continued forward, fully aware that the dawn would bring new challenges, but confident that whatever came next, they would meet it as one. The morning sun filtered through the palace's crystalline windows, painting the grand hall in soft golds and blues. Celine and Evan convened with their closest advisors, the tension from recent events still palpable in the air. Outside, courtiers whispered, the bond between the princess and her protector continuing to fuel speculation. Celine's gaze swept over the room, violet eyes steady and commanding. We have proven our readiness against immediate threats, but long-term stability requires more than reaction. We must anticipate both political and external challenges. Evan nodded, feeling her resolve echoing through the bond. We've won the first battle, but the war for influence is just beginning. A tactical officer stepped forward, displaying a holographic map of Varelia's borders. Princess, analysis of northern incursions suggests additional cloaked vessels remain undetected. Likely scouting forces testing our response patterns. Celine leaned forward, tracing the projections. We must integrate intelligence from every source. Deploy reconnaissance drones using adaptive cloaking countermeasures. I want predictive algorithms cross-referenced with historical incursions. Evan added, we can model potential attack vectors based on prior simulations. Combined with real-time sensor data, we could neutralize threats before they materialize in populated regions. A murmur of approval rippled through younger officers, while some elders exchanged skeptical glances. The bond is powerful, but can it replace experience? One general thought silently. Celine's voice cut through the uncertainty. The bond does not replace knowledge, it enhances it. It gives us clarity in moments when instinct alone might fail. The day progressed with intense preparation. Through the bond, Evan could sense Celine's mental calculations, her attention to detail, and her ability to anticipate political repercussions as sharply as military ones. He contributed his Earth-based tactical experience, merging it seamlessly with her centuries-old strategies. By midday, the first wave of signals arrived, anomalies in the southern border regions, small fleets moving in irregular patterns. Using the predictive models and coordinated responses guided by the bond, interception teams acted decisively. Cloaked vessels were disabled without casualties, and the population remained unaware of the threat averted. Celine allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction, her hand brushing Evan's as they reviewed the reports. We are effective together, the bond communicated. Not just in combat but in leadership. Meanwhile, whispers in the palace corridors turned to open speculation among nobles. Some argued the bond's influence was unnatural, a dangerous deviation from tradition. Others, more pragmatic, began to recognize the unprecedented advantage it offered. Celine addressed the council later in the afternoon, projecting calm authority. Our duty is to protect Varelia, our people, and the future of this realm. The bond does not threaten our traditions, it strengthens our ability to uphold them. Evan felt the surge of confidence through the bond. We are not breaking tradition, we are evolving it. As evening fell, the palace gardens became a refuge. The twin moon's reflection shimmered across crystalline plants, casting ethereal patterns. Celine and Evan walked in quiet companionship, the bond connecting them in ways words could not. I sense the strain of recent events weighing on you, Evan said softly. The political tensions, the threats, they could be exhausting. Celine smiled faintly, a serene expression despite the underlying pressure. The bond sustains me. Your presence steadies my mind. We are stronger together than apart. They paused by a reflecting pool, the water mirroring their intertwined silhouettes. The council may still resist, Celine mused. Some will never accept the bond, but others will see what it allows us to achieve. Evan placed a hand lightly on hers. Let them watch. Let them see how unity and trust can forge strength. The bond is more than connection, it's proof that collaboration transcends difference. Through the bond, Celine sent a pulse of gratitude and determination. We are not just connected. We are a symbol. And symbols endure. As the twin moons rose higher, casting silver and violet light across the garden, they walked side by side in silence, each step a quiet affirmation of purpose. Together, they had faced danger, outmaneuvered treachery, and demonstrated the power of their unprecedented connection. Whatever challenges the future held, political intrigue, interstellar diplomacy, or unseen enemies, they would face them united. And as the night deepened, the bond thrummed with quiet strength, a living testament to the possibilities of two worlds joined in understanding, trust, and shared destiny. The following morning, the palace buzzed with controlled activity. Celine convened with military strategists, scholars, and key advisors in the council chamber, a high-ceilinged room adorned with banners depicting centuries of Varelian victories. The bond with Evan hummed quietly, grounding her focus amidst the mounting responsibilities. The recent border anomalies have exposed weaknesses in our early warning systems, Celine stated, her voice steady. We cannot afford another near miss. I want redundancies built into every monitoring node, with cross-verification from both human and Varelian sources. Evan, seated beside her, nodded. We can integrate predictive modeling with ancient defense protocols, the bond conveyed, allowing him to overlay his Earth-based tactics with her kingdom's systems. One of the elder advisors frowned. Princess, these measures, while efficient, may alarm neighboring systems. They might perceive our actions as aggressive rather than defensive. Celine met his gaze. Preparedness is not aggression. Our neighbors must understand that protection does not equate to hostility. Diplomacy comes after security, not before. The meeting stretched through mid-morning, each plan scrutinized and refined, the bond allowing Celine and Evan to anticipate potential objections before they arose. When discussions shifted to cultural integration strategies, the focus turned from military logistics to diplomacy. We must also address the perception of the bond among the nobility, Celine continued. Some view it as unnatural, even sacrilegious. Others recognize the potential to strengthen alliances both within Varelia and beyond. How do we manage that narrative? Evan replied, transparency is key. Let those skeptical see the bond's benefits firsthand. Demonstrate its role in safeguarding the princess, in bridging cultures. Proof will outweigh prejudice. By afternoon, they moved to the palace archives, a cavernous space filled with luminescent texts and scrolls chronicling centuries of Varelian history. Celine and Evan studied records of past Darth bonds, observing patterns, strengths, and weaknesses. Each case provided insight into the careful management required to sustain the connection without compromising autonomy. Through the bond, Evan could feel her analytical process, the delicate balance between tradition and innovation. The bond does not dictate our choices. It reveals them, he realized. We decide how to act, together. A sudden alert interrupted their research. Sensors had detected a small, unmarked vessel approaching Virelia's atmosphere. Military protocols triggered immediately, and both Celine and Evan were swept into rapid response coordination. "This is likely reconnaissance," Celine said, issuing commands with measured authority. "Deploy drones. Intercept and identify without engagement unless provoked." Evan added, "We'll need both stealth and speed. Cloaking countermeasures paired with targeted signal scans should suffice." Within minutes, the drones transmitted live imagery of the vessel, confirming their suspicions. Scouts testing response patterns, likely probing for weaknesses. The coordinated countermeasures, guided by their shared tactical awareness, neutralized the threat without escalation. As the immediate danger passed, Celine exhaled, the bond radiating a pulse of calm. Effective. Efficient. Prepared for what comes next, the connection conveyed. Evan smiled, feeling the weight of the bond's guidance and their shared accomplishments. Later that evening, the palace gardens offered a rare moment of solitude. Moonlight shimmered across the crystalline flora, reflecting both Celine's regal poise and Evan's grounded presence. "You've adapted remarkably," Evan said, observing her relaxed posture. The slight tension of responsibility softened. "Even under scrutiny, you maintain control." Celine allowed herself a faint smile. "It is not just me. The bond provides perspective, clarity. I can anticipate, adjust, and act with confidence because I am not alone in thought or purpose." Evan felt the depth of their connection in a way that went beyond coordination or strategy. "We are a single unit in moments that demand it, yet distinct in our identities," the bond confirmed. A soft breeze carried the scent of crystalline blossoms. "The Council's reaction to the bond will be critical," Celine reflected. "Moderates will see opportunity. Conservatives may resist. The balance of influence is delicate." Evan squeezed her hand lightly, the gesture a reminder of shared purpose. "Let them resist. Let them watch. The bond is more than a political instrument. It is proof that unity and trust transcend heritage, species, and expectation." The night deepened, stars sparkling above in the vast Virelian sky. Celine and Evan walked side by side, their connection pulsing with quiet strength and understanding. They knew that the days ahead would test every skill, every insight, and the very resilience of the Darth bond itself. But together, they had already demonstrated what was possible when courage, trust, and shared purpose intersected. The bond was no longer a symbol of controversy. It was a living testament to what could be achieved when worlds and hearts aligned. As they reached the palace terrace, overlooking the city, both felt a quiet determination. Whatever challenges awaited, political intrigue, interstellar threats, or hidden conspiracies, they would face them united, their bond a bridge between tradition and the future. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, they had reaffirmed their strength, their purpose, and the extraordinary potential of what lay ahead. The following morning, the council convened in the Hall of Ancestral Judgment, its towering walls adorned with intricate reliefs depicting centuries of Virelian history. The chamber carried an atmosphere heavy with precedent, where every word spoken could echo through generations. Celine and Evan entered together, their bond humming subtly beneath the surface, a shared awareness guiding their steps. Emperor Kalian rose as they approached. "Today, we address both the unprecedented bond and the growing concerns among our nobility regarding external influence," he announced, his voice resonating with authority. "Princess Celine, Lieutenant Evan Cade, you will present your report directly to the council." Celine stepped forward, her posture commanding yet composed. Honored Emperor, esteemed council members, the Darth bond has activated fully between myself and Lieutenant Cade, she began. It has done so through acts of protection, shared danger, and mutual understanding, consistent with historical precedent, though notably across species lines. Murmurs spread across the council. One elder protested, cross-species bonding challenges everything our ancestors codified. It undermines the sanctity of the crown. Selene met his gaze unwaveringly. Respectfully, counselor, the bond does not diminish tradition. It strengthens it, demonstrating that merit, courage, and loyalty, not mere heritage, define our protectorate and succession. Evan stepped forward to compliment her statement. I did not seek this bond. It activated because of actions taken to preserve the princess's life. Through the bond, we've shared insight, skills, and strategic awareness that have already protected Varelia from immediate threats. A younger noble leaned forward. And yet, there remains the concern of loyalty. How can we trust a human officer to uphold Varelian interests in matters of governance and security? Selene answered firmly, loyalty is demonstrated by action. Lieutenant Cade's commitment has been tested repeatedly. His allegiance is to the safety and prosperity of Varelia, and the bond itself ensures mutual responsibility and accountability. The council consulted in whispered groups, attention rising as factions debated between fear and curiosity. Through the bond, Evan could sense Selene's subtle adjustments, microshifts in posture, inflection, and gaze, allowing him to anticipate and reinforce her statements seamlessly. Suddenly, an alert sounded. Sensors detected movement along the eastern perimeter. A reconnaissance party had attempted covert entry into the palace grounds. Without hesitation, Selene and Evan moved toward the command console, their coordination seamless. Deploy perimeter drones, Selene ordered. Track and contain. No engagement unless necessary. Evan accessed Earth tactical overlays, guiding the drones in real time. The bond allowed them to anticipate threats and adjust strategies fluidly. Within moments, the intruders were neutralized without bloodshed, demonstrating the practical advantage of their connection. Returning to the chamber, Selene addressed the council once more. This incident illustrates precisely why the bond is invaluable. It enhances not only personal protection but also strategic oversight for the kingdom. The bond is not an abomination, it is evolution guided by ancestral intent. Emperor Kalian's gaze softened slightly, yet his tone remained measured. Your demonstration is compelling, Princess. Council, consider not only tradition but also adaptability. Varelia's strength has always relied on both. One conservative voice remained defiant. If we legitimize this bond, what precedent are we setting? What prevents further dilution of our sacred lineage? Selene responded with unwavering calm. The bond is selective. It does not form arbitrarily, nor does it dissolve identity. It enhances capabilities while preserving individuality. The integrity of the crown remains intact. After hours of deliberation, the council reached a cautious consensus. The Darth bond would be recognized officially, and Lieutenant Evan Cade's role as bonded protector would be codified. The decision sparked murmurs of relief among moderates and reluctant acceptance among conservatives. Later that evening, Selene and Evan walked through the palace gardens, their bond glowing faintly in shared awareness. The council's judgment is a start, Selene said softly. But this is only the beginning. Diplomacy, security, and public perception all remain challenges we must navigate. Evan squeezed her hand gently. Then we face them together, as we always have. The bond is not just a connection, it's a partnership in every sense. Celine smiled, the tension of the day easing. Partnership, understanding, vigilance. The bond guides us, but we still must act wisely. They paused at a reflective pool, the twin moons' light shimmering across the water, casting rippling reflections that mirrored their intertwined silhouettes. We are stronger together, the bond affirmed silently. And through us, Varelia will step into a future defined by both tradition and possibility. As night deepened, they lingered in quiet contemplation, aware that while political storms could rage, threats could arise at any moment. Their unity through the Darth bond provided a shield far beyond the reach of ordinary means. Their journey, far from concluded, had entered a new phase, one defined not just by survival or duty, but by a vision of connection, courage, and evolution for two worlds now intertwined. The morning sun filtered through the crystalline spires of the palace, casting fractured beams across the Hall of Strategy. Celine and Evan convened with the senior military council, their bond humming faintly with anticipation. Intelligence reports had indicated unusual troop movements along the northern borders, hinting at a coordinated attempt to destabilize Varelia. Initial scans suggest this may not be a conventional threat, Celine said, projecting the holographic map. The formations are irregular, subtle shifts in positioning that indicate anticipation of our standard patrol patterns. Someone has studied our defenses closely. Evan leaned in, his mind processing alongside hers. Through the bond, he could feel Celine's tactical instincts merging with his own experience. They're probing for weaknesses, looking for gaps in communication and response time. If we act predictably, they'll exploit it. But if we anticipate their moves, we can turn it against them. A general frowned. Princess, Lieutenant, are you suggesting a counteroffensive? Against unknown forces at our border. Celine's violet eyes met his. Not just any counteroffensive. A controlled maneuver that exposes them without compromising civilian regions. Evan, coordinate with the drone network. Let's simulate potential scenarios. Within moments, the hall buzzed with energy as drones, sensors, and holographic simulations came alive. Celine and Evan, working in synchrony through the Darth bond, predicted the adversary's likely points of approach and plotted a defensive strategy that accounted for multiple contingencies. Their combined insight revealed patterns even veteran commanders had overlooked. Suddenly, a warning alert cut through the room, a breach at one of the northern outposts. They've advanced faster than anticipated, a lieutenant shouted. Evan immediately projected the battlefield layout to Celine. They're attempting a feint. Their main force is diverting toward the western valley. We can use this to our advantage. Celine nodded, her composure absolute. Deploy the secondary units along the ridge. Prepare containment protocols. I will lead a rapid response team to intercept the vanguard. Evan, your support will be critical. We need synchronized execution. As they mobilized, the bond pulsed with increasing intensity. Evan felt Celine's awareness extending through his own senses, anticipating enemy movements, calculating trajectories, and predicting outcomes. Meanwhile, Celine experienced his tactical insight and intuition, a perspective grounded in human military logic. The northern ridge became the stage of a precise, almost choreographed confrontation. Celine led the vanguard with fluid grace, her movements complemented by Evan's guidance and subtle telepathic coordination. Enemy units faltered under the combined strategic ingenuity and reflexive coordination of the bonded pair. At the climax of the engagement, the enemy commander revealed himself, a familiar figure from earlier diplomatic tensions, a mercenary skilled in subversion. He lunged toward Celine, weapon raised. Evan instinctively positioned himself, but through the bond, Celine intercepted mentally. Distract, but do not endanger. Channel him toward the ridge. In perfect unison, Celine sidestepped, allowing Evan to intercept with a precise, non-lethal strike that incapacitated the mercenary. The remaining forces surrendered or fled, their morale shattered by the seamless coordination of bond-bearers who seemed to anticipate every move. When the dust settled, the council convened once more. Princess Celine, Lieutenant Cade, General Orvan addressed them. Your strategy and execution prevented what could have been a catastrophic incursion. The bond, it's proven more than theoretical, it is a tangible force multiplier. Celine bowed slightly. Our goal is protection, not conquest. The bond amplifies responsibility, not power alone. Evan added, we must remain vigilant. Intelligence indicates this was likely a trial, not the full plan. Whoever orchestrated this knows about the bond now, they may test its limits. The Emperor entered, his presence commanding silence. You have proven the bond's worth beyond question, he said, his voice heavy with approval. Yet, as Evan noted, challenges remain. The Galaxy Watches, and Varelia must navigate both diplomacy and defense with wisdom. Celine stepped closer, her voice low but confident. We are prepared, Father. The bond will guide us, and together, we will meet any threat. The Emperor's gaze lingered on Evan. Your commitment and understanding of this bond will be pivotal. You are no longer merely a protector. You are a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what Varelia can achieve. Evan felt the weight of the acknowledgement. Through the bond, Celine shared a subtle pulse of reassurance, a recognition of his growing place not just in her life, but in the fate of an entire kingdom. As the council dispersed, Celine and Evan remained in the war room, reviewing intelligence and strategizing for potential repercussions. Do you think Oxen had anything to do with this? Evan asked, referring to the former counselor whose treachery had almost fractured the kingdom months earlier. Celine's expression hardened. Whatever remnants of his influence remain will be neutralized. Varelia cannot afford divided loyalties. But this is only the beginning. The bond has revealed potential threats we never anticipated. We must prepare for the galaxy's response to our unprecedented alliance. Their conversation paused as a subtle vibration pulsed through their connection, a shared awareness that went beyond words. Danger, curiosity, and opportunity intertwined. The bond hummed, a reminder that their fates were inseparably linked, and that the next test could come from anywhere. For Celine and Evan, the second half of their journey loomed closer. Political storms, clandestine threats, and the ultimate test of trust and unity. The Darth bond was no longer a secret, it was the lifeline of the kingdom, and the beacon that could either secure or imperil the future of two worlds. The great hall of ancestral judgment lay shrouded in morning mist, its towering statues and crystalline floors gleaming faintly in the pale light. The Council of Varelia had convened at the Emperor's summons, the air thick with anticipation. Rumors of the Darth bond's unprecedented formation between Princess Celine and Lieutenant Evan Cade had rippled across noble houses and diplomatic channels, and today, a final judgment would be rendered. Emperor Valerian's voice resonated through the hall. We gather to address events unparalleled in our history. The attempted destabilization of our northern borders, the treachery of past advisors, and most importantly, the formation of a Darth bond across species lines. This bond challenges tradition, yet it has also demonstrated unmatched valor and strategic acumen. All eyes turned to Celine and Evan. The pulse of the bond between them shimmered subtly beneath their skin, a visible testament to their unity. Celine stepped forward, her posture regal despite the tension. Esteemed council, the Darth bond formed not by intention, but in response to selfless acts. Lieutenant Cade shielded me from danger, and in that moment, our consciousness intertwined. The bond revealed both my vulnerabilities and his strengths, bridging worlds and perspectives that history has kept separate. Evan's voice followed, measured and clear. I did not seek this bond, but I have witnessed its power firsthand, how it enhances understanding, amplifies protection, and fosters connection without erasing identity. What some fear as contamination or violation is, in truth, a merging of purpose and trust. The council murmured uneasily, some leaning back with visible discomfort, others intrigued by the courage and clarity of the bond-bearers. Elder Sony, seated near the center, rose with a slow, deliberate nod. The ancient texts affirm that a Darth bond recognizes worthiness, not mere lineage. The bond transcends species, revealing the intent and character of those involved. A tense silence fell. The Emperor's gaze swept over the assembly. The bond's existence is now undeniable, and its consequences extend beyond personal connection. They are political, strategic, and cultural. We must accept this new reality with wisdom, not fear. From the far side of the hall, dissenting voices rose, conservative counselors who still clung to rigid traditions. "This is abomination," one shouted. "A human has no place in Velian succession or protection." Valerian's voice cut through the uproar like a blade. "Enough. The law of the Darth bond is inviolable. Those joined by it are unified in purpose by the will of our ancestors. No earthly authority, not even that of an emperor, may sever or deny this connection." Reluctant acceptance rippled through the council, the weight of centuries of tradition clashing with the undeniable truth before them. Valerian's tone softened as he addressed Celine. "Princess, you remain heir to the eternal throne. The bond bears witness not to weakness, but to the courage to embrace change and to protect Varelia from threats both internal and external." He turned to Evan. "Lieutenant Cade, you shall hold the newly established position of Darth Sentinel of the Crown. Your duties are sacred, to act as protector, advisor, and liaison, not just for this kingdom, but for the unity that this bond symbolizes." Evan knelt, receiving the ceremonial armband inscribed with symbols reflecting both his Earth origins and the Velian connection. The gesture, simple yet profound, cemented his place in the royal structure and in Celine's life. As the council dispersed, Celine and Evan remained in the hall, walking among the glowing mineral patterns that represented the interconnected bloodlines of Varelia. The bond pulsed strongly, a hum of shared purpose and understanding. "Do you think this truly changes everything?" Evan asked quietly, sensing the lingering tension through the bond. Celine's violet eyes met his. "It changes what is necessary. The bond illuminates what was always possible, revealing paths we could never see before. Our unity is now a bridge, not just between us, but between our peoples." A sudden alert sounded, a minor breach at a distant border post, a final test. Instinctively, they both felt it through the bond. But this time, there was no fear. They had faced treachery, battle, and political upheaval together. They were ready. Shall we see what the bond can do next? Celine asked, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Evan nodded, grasping her hand. Together. As they moved toward the strategic command chamber, their connection hummed with anticipation. The twin worlds of Earth and Varelia now intertwined, a living symbol of unity forged through trust, courage, and extraordinary circumstance. The galaxy beyond the palace walls awaited, full of uncertainty and challenge. Yet for the first time, the future felt navigable, not because the path was safe, but because they would walk it side by side. The Darth bond had changed everything. And in doing so, it had revealed the true potential of what connection, loyalty, and courage could achieve. Together, they stepped forward, ready to embrace a destiny that neither tradition nor expectation could have foreseen.